Hi everyone, I want to thank you all for joining today's webinar. Typically, many of you might know this, these are held on Wednesday, so I want to thank you for joining today, if that messed up your schedule or whatnot. Before we get started, I am going to go through the poll questions that we have. So the next one is, did you attend the last Moldflow webinar, which was around customization? So I'm going to let this run for a couple more seconds. So it looks like the majority of you did join the last webinar. If not, you can always see that on YouTube. The next question is, are you familiar with the default databases in Moldflow? Those would be the material databases, the ability to change machine settings, and so forth. So I'll go ahead and close that and share those results. Looks like, again, the majority of those on the call today are aware of these databases, so hopefully we'll be able to help you customize those, or you'll learn something new with the databases. And the last question I have is, do you currently change the process settings or geometry properties on several analysis? Meaning, are you running several analysis and iterations during a project where you have to go through and change cooling or temperatures or fill time, packing, and so forth? So again, it looks like the majority of the users are having to run several iterations where the process settings are being changed. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the polls. So today we have Kristen, who is going to be going through database management to streamline your workflow in Moldflow Insight. She's going to be doing a live demo explaining how to set up those databases and, as the title mentioned, streamlining the workflow. We also have on the line, if you have additional questions, myself and Paul Larder, as well as Jay Shoemaker. So again, if you have questions, you can ask those in the questions panel in the GoToMeeting. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Kristen.
Thanks, Kate. As Kate mentioned, what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about database management, how to set them up, and how to best utilize those to enhance your workflow and just improve your overall experience in Moldflow. Okay. As Kate mentioned, the webinars, we do host several webinars. We try for at least once a month for each product. So we do everything, all the simulation products, CFD, mechanical, Moldflow, and then composites. So you might have attended one of those. However, they're all posted online, as Kate mentioned, at our YouTube channel, Autodesk Sim 360. And listed there, I just have the previous webinars for Simulation Moldflow that you can always look back on at that YouTube channel to get a better understanding for some of the features inside of Moldflow. As many of you indicated, you became aware of these webinars through email. However, we do post them to the forums, to social media such as Twitter and LinkedIn, and then also Facebook. So if you want to share these webinars with your colleagues or some of your customers, feel free to, because we want as many people to benefit from these as we can. Going along with these webinars, I am a part of the support team for Simulation Moldflow, and within the support team we handle cases from customers, and what we started doing earlier this year is start to create articles for cases that we run through. So what we do is try and share the knowledge to anyone who is looking for it. We do that through our website called knowledge.autodesk.com. There we post articles, either how-to articles or troubleshooting articles. As you can see there, those are some of the articles that were listed for new ones created for the month of November. And you can see there's a few how-tos there, understanding certain concepts in Moldflow, as well as warnings and troubleshooting. Now, through the knowledge.autodesk.com website, there's actually a section for troubleshooting specifically. So listed there is just a link to that website, or that section of the knowledge base. On today's agenda today, I'd like to talk a little bit about discovering databases and then how to empower using databases, and then go into a quick demo on setting them up and kind of showing you how-tos, and then probably go into custom how-tos if you have any specific questions that we can try and show you on or show you live, then we'll try and do that also. All right, I wanted to thank everyone for, during your registration, you answered a couple questions for us, and I know we had a few poll questions at the beginning also where it sounds like most of you have really heard of databases and have utilized them in Moldflow. However, during the registration we had quite a few more, registrants answer some poll questions, and wanted to share these results here. A significant number, about 30%, were not aware of databases in Moldflow and what they really are. And then there was pretty much the same amount that have used them and are pretty familiar and have customized Moldflow to incorporate their own options inside of Moldflow. And then there was also about 39% of people, registrants, that have used databases, but when you think of database, you think of material, which that is a key one inside of Moldflow. However, I'd like to kind of share additional database uses with you today, and go into more detail on customizing. So, key question, what is a database in Moldflow? As I mentioned, most people think of material. You think of, you want to import your custom material into Moldflow, so you need a custom database to do that. Or you want to separate certain materials and edit them or something like that. That's when you would create a database. Now, what I mentioned earlier was there's several other options for you to create databases for. And that includes molding machines, process conditions or solvers, mesh, geometry, boundary conditions, and then many more. And I'll go a little more into detail on where you can find the list of everything available to customize in a future slide. Okay, the first thing I'd like to go over today is system databases. Now, a system database inside of Moldflow is kind of a default database. It's preloaded with your installation of Moldflow, and it has default values in there recommended by the Moldflow team for just a general encompassment of what users use Moldflow for. So you can see here you can access the default properties inside of Moldflow to see what things are set to by going to the Tools tab and then to Edit Default Properties. And it's actually listed under the databases here, so there will be a little arrow or drawdown menu, and that'll expand for this menu here. And once you get into the properties, you can see here it lists several different property databases here. So once you go into properties, here you can see there's parameters, process conditions, materials, geometry, mesh, and boundary conditions. And then it lists each one here, such as bubblers, gates, sprues, runners, go down a little bit, end mold label, initial charges, and even injection molding machine. So there, the list in my previous slide was very short compared to all these options you have in here. Now, I did want to bring up Moldflow Advisor. If you do use Advisor, you do have an option to have databases in there. However, you won't have this Edit Default Properties section here, and the only properties you'll be able to actually create a database for would be coolants, mold materials, and then thermoplastic materials. So you can see in Insight here, there's several more options for you to customize and incorporate these databases into your workflows. Now, when you go into create a personal database, you can go to the Tools panel, as we were just at in the previous slide, and either select a new custom database or else edit one of your current ones. When you do this, or when you go to edit a new one, it'll open your UDB file in the project directory database or directory folder. So it'll show all your personal databases here, and it doesn't matter what if you were editing or if you were looking for your material or machines database, whatever kind of database it is, you'll be able to find it in that folder, unless you specify a different folder for that. Now, when you go to create a new database, the one thing that we do stress is to make sure you rename it. It's kind of overlooked sometimes because it's a little hidden by the long file name here. However, if you scroll over to the right when you're creating the name here, it'll say Untitled and then a couple numbers and then .udb. Now, if you keep doing new database, all these untitled databases, you won't know which one to do if you want to go in and edit them. So this will give you a little more knowledge on choosing the correct database when you go to edit in the future, or else use it in your workflow. The one thing I did want to bring up here is the number. As you can see here, it says untitled.2001.0.udb. That number there actually changes depending on what type of category you choose. So if you choose materials, you'll have a .200 and so forth. Thermoset materials would be .21000. And then they change, such as here, a solver parameter, it's .1005. So that's one thing you can take a look at also to make sure you're in the correct category. Otherwise, you won't be able to add the proper options in there once you create the database. And I'll go ahead and go through kind of editing a database as well as creating a new database in the demo a little bit later on in this webinar. Okay, now moving on to understanding a personal database. As I mentioned, the file names of your databases are important. You can create several different databases, and I just wanted to show it here with something a lot of you are familiar with, is creating a material database. So here we have material manufacturer ABC up on the top with, three materials here listed, material A through C. So that's that manufacturer's materials. And then down here I actually created another one that says alternate manufacturer. So if you're working with a specific manufacturer, if you know, or if you're importing material from these manufacturers, you can separate them into their own databases so they can be more refined when you go to search for them in the future. Now throughout this presentation I also have a couple links listed up here, and our help pages actually explain these also, just for reference in the future, and you'll be able to access this whole presentation in our box folder, and I'll share the link with you later on towards the end of the presentation. So you can go ahead and click that link, or else you can navigate to it yourself by using the search bar in the help or Moldflow help files. All right, so once you have a personal database created, in order to add or customize the data inside of it, the materials or options or parameters or whatever, you're going to want to make sure you select this database box down in the center right of that screen there. This will enable this window down here to pop up, and what that does is actually lists the settings that are currently in Moldflow. So these are the system databases, or else you can go here and load either an existing one from a user database, or else a file that you're importing for a material, or so forth. So it's a nice way to be able to customize this data. From there, you can just select these options, or whichever one you want to select down here, and then click the copy button here. And what that does is actually imports it into your newly created custom database. And then in there, you're able to edit it, duplicate, create new, and so forth. So there are a few options there that can be useful when you're trying to customize this for yourself. Okay, so we went through a little bit kind of the background of databases, and now you're probably thinking, if you haven't used databases before, or if you've used them, just don't really know the capabilities of them, what is the benefit of it? What really is so great about using these databases? So the first thing I think is pretty key is it's streamlining your workflow. If you set up one of these databases, you'll be able to import them, and instead of going through several different options inside of Moldflow, all you would need to do is do a few clicks and you'll have every setting that you needed to change inside there ready to go, and quicker analysis time, or quicker analysis setup. So this will make a little more sense once we go through a couple demos here. However, in the long run, what it does is saves time. It'll streamline from, instead of making 20 clicks to enter in bunch of different settings in your process settings window, or in the advanced settings. What it'll do is import all those with those 2 clicks instead of 20, say. Now another key point for this is consistency. Using databases allows you to bring consistency into your studies, into different users who use it. Instead of having one user set up a study a certain way, or one way, and then 3 other users set it up the same way, everyone will have the ability to have the same settings in there, and less room for error when you're comparing analysis or trying to look for specific results in there. Okay, what I'm going to do now is go into the demo, and for this I'll be using Insight here, and I just have kind of a tutorial part here listed, and from here I'll go to the Tools panel and just show you a little bit about here. As I explained earlier, we can go see the default properties here. So let's go to Edit Default Properties, and then listed here are all the default settings inside of Moldflow. So there's several here. So let's just try going into, say, the dual domain. Click OK. Whoops. We'll do Edit so we can take a look at those. All right. So this is all the settings that are encompassed by the solver parameters for thermoplastics molding with dual domain analysis. It's very familiar to most of you. It'll have 12 laminae set in there, everything from warpage to core shift, all that familiar stuff. So what we typically advise is not to really edit these properties here. The system properties can be kind of, we recommend to create a custom database and copy these over to it to use rather than customizing these yourselves, because that way you'll have something to kind of go back to if something's not really working to your liking. You can reset it back to the default and kind of proceed from there. So what I'll do next is go in and actually just create a new database. So as I mentioned here, see, it gets kind of lost when you're looking for the file name. So you just click on that and it pulls up your project folder here. So let's go and call this Manufacturer 1. Click OK, and I'll go through and just do a materials one just to start with. So we'll do material, and as you saw there was .200 on it, so that means material. And then you can go down here and specify, let's say, thermoplastic. So if you look up here now, it actually changed that number to 21000, and that indicates that it's a thermoplastic material right there. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and this window pops up for the properties. Now the database is already created. You can see here its destination folder is that database, but there's nothing there. So what we want to do is actually pull in a material. So we'll go ahead and pull in, let's say, do a PC here. Copy it up, and you can see it just copied that exact material. And as I mentioned, this is pulling it from the system database right here. So here you can go down to user, and there will be a few user ones in there, depending on if you have created a database before. So to customize this, you can go in here and click Edit, and One thing to remember when you do this is make sure you make the options very descriptive. So in this case, we just had the name here, so we'll just rename it to Material 1 and go ahead and do that. And OK. Now when you go into your material, that'll be listed under the database here. And we'll go up here, switch it over to user, and you can see right there it pulled it in as that new material there. All right, so now getting into what you would use this for. In your everyday workflow, yeah, it's great to import new materials or to customize materials if needed. However, what's the great benefit for it? So one thing we'll try is going up and let's do an edit. So I created a database for a mold manufacturer. Let's go ahead and open it up. So I have Molder A injection molding machines. So say your facility or your company has 2 different mold manufacturers, or else or 2 different part manufacturers, excuse me. So you want to analyze the parts based on the machines that they have at their facilities. So here, Molder A, what I did here was enter in a few or enter in the presses that would be available at that manufacturer. And all I did here was go to databases and then looked for the presses that they have, or else edit your own, and copy it up. And then, as I mentioned, be descriptive. So say this company labels their presses 1 through 6. So we'll go in here, edit it, and just enter in here press number 6. Close it out, and there we go. So we'll go ahead and close out of that, bring up the other one now, Molder B, and here they only have 4 presses. Same process, however they have their presses listed here, which are slightly different. So depending on where you want, let's say, let's open up this part here. Let's say we want that press, the press from Molder A, press number 3. So how you would get there is going under the process settings here. When you're setting all this up, going to advanced options and then injection molding machine, instead of clicking on one of these presses listed in the system, since you have that database, you can actually go in here and open up the presses from Molder A. So those are the only ones you're going to be seeing here. Now press number 3, set it, and go. So it's easier to do that than going in here, selecting one of these presses, clicking details to make sure you have the correct information in here, and then finally being able to say, okay, select it, and then okay. So it's a nice way to utilize or keep organized which manufacturers have which presses, and have all that information pre-selected in there. So we'll go ahead and cancel out of that. Now I mentioned there were a couple other, or you saw the list of different parameters that you can change in these databases. So let's try a different one. Let's go into one of these, and actually, you know what, let's start from scratch here. We'll go to new, go to, let's say, parameters. So these are the solver parameters in, so it would be the things listed under advanced settings in solver parameters specifically. And then we'll go to, say, dual domain, make sure to rename it, And you can see here it has a different number listed here because it's a different type of database. We'll go to, let's say, dual domain, solvers, high, let's do high resolution. Click Save. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and open up the database again. And you can see here there's several listed. That's because it's set to the user database here. What we'll do is switch it over to just the default again, copy it up, select it, edit it, and go down here, change the name. We'll do dual domain. Let's see, let's do maybe 18 laminae for the mesh, and then how about 100 iterations for results. So that'll be a very intensive result summary there. So as I mentioned, be descriptive with the name, so we'll do dual domain, 100 results, iterations, and then 18 laminae. Okay, so there's that one in there. We'll go ahead and create another one just so we have a couple in there to choose from. Go edit and dual domain. We'll do, let's say 40 iterations. Oops. Salt iterations. And then 12 laminae. Okay, so you can see there we have two different choices here listed. Go ahead and select OK. Now, as I mentioned, when you're going through a workflow, let's say we want to change that setting in there. So we'll go to Advanced Options and then Solver Parameters. Now here you can see the default one, and if we switch it over to User, oops, it'll pull up all the user databases. So I have a few extra ones in here. However, if you want to specify to that specific one that we just created here, dual domain solvers, click on that one and it'll only show those two. So let's do 100. Okay, okay. Now the nice thing is, as I mentioned, is consistency. So say we have that in this project. However, this is a slightly different design, but we want to run it with the same solver parameters. So you go into Process Settings again, Advanced Options, select, and over here again, 100. Okay, okay, okay. There we go, we just did that. Now if you go and do it manually, let's say in this one you want to do it manually without a database, it would be going back into the Advanced, going into Edit, and then here you would have to go on and do this on each one of these that you want to have the same options for. So that's one of the nice features of databases, to be able to do that. Now I wanted to see if there are any options. Kate, are there any questions in there that we want to go over, or Paul or Jay, do you want to chime in on anything that I've gone over today?
I don't see any questions. No, I think what you've just shown is been quite clear.
Okay.
Is there anyone out there? Any questions?
Looks like a question just came in. They want to know if they can edit a material. Yes, we can. Kristen, do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, we can edit materials. I'll bring that up for you. We'll just go into one of the custom databases here. The one thing that we do want to caution about when you're editing materials is, oops, wrong one here, is to make sure that you realize that there could be things not accounted for if you just edit a material. So if you're choosing a similar material or a material, however, you don't really know the specific viscosity of it, it could flow differently from the material that you're editing. So here, I'll go ahead, just import a new material for you here. Let's do, yeah, let's just do that. So here we've copied it up to our custom database just to keep it separate from the system database in case you want to revert back to it in the future. Go ahead and click on it, and here you'll be able to kind of edit any of these values, say 520 or something like that, 412. Go in there, change all these values if you want, if you know the mechanical values. So you can see there are a lot of different characteristics that apply to materials. That's why we do caution against editing a material. I don't know if there's a specific thing that you were thinking about editing. You can go ahead and comment in the questions field again and see if we can clarify anything for you that way.
Christine, we've got a question from Tim regarding is there any way to do a database of gate styles? So the answer is yes. I mean, if you think about anything you do within the software, there's a default, so you can make a database. So if you can just pull up the geometry databases, we've already got a list of databases for gate styles or dimensions, but you can make your own. So what you have to think about, if at any time you go in and create a gate, by default it's 5 mil round. So again, we can make a database on my gate designs, and then you can go in and do all your different gate designs as a database. So yeah, Colgate, so do OK to that, and then we can just go in, and there you, yeah, I mean you're working in English, but yeah, you can go in and make your different cross-section sizes. You could assign different mold materials to that gate, run a system, etc.
Also, along that, if when you're done with that dialog, highlight the beam element. Right-click, go into Properties, say Yes, and say go to Select instead of New. Go to Cold Gate, and it's already populated there. So with a number of different gates, but the what Tim is asking is, geez, what if the gates I want to use are not there? Well, you can just create a database with all the different variations you want. So as Paul was mentioning, you could change the default. So the default came up some value, but you could also create that database with a lot of different variety, and so you can grab any of those as well. Yeah,
so just click on the new button now, Kristen, and then yeah, just click on new, and then you don't have to do copy, just do new, and that will pull up the default data property for a gate. Just click on new, and there you can change it. So here we can have a new gate, give it a new name, so cold gate, whatever, and save it, and that will be your custom one, okay, and then you'll change something, and then do another one, and that will be, you just go through. So what I'd say with databases, if you ever find yourself hitting the new button, think about should you make it as a database and hit select or create a database for that property.
Yeah, so here's where you would select either user or system, and when you pull up user, those are the two that we just created. So yeah, it's pretty much applies to any option, like I said, that you saw in that property menu here. So any of these settings here, you can set that up and preload it once you're in there creating a study from there. Thanks, Paul and Jay.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions out there?
Yeah, there was a question on metal injection molding materials. Absolutely, those can be added to the database. I could be mistaken, but I think the standard thermoplastic database does have metal injection molding materials in them. And so absolutely you could have that material tested by Autodesk's material labs or someplace else, and then the data could be put into a thermoplastic materials database.
Okay, thanks, Jay. All right. Are there any more examples that anyone would like to go over in the audience there? Or Jay or Paul, do you think of anything else you'd like to kind of go through?
No, I think you've covered it. I mean, once you've shown one thing, it applies to all the different parameters. I mean, it's good that you show the different injection molding machine companies, how you can separate out the manufacturer of the different machines. So that's the main thing. I think you've shown the main topics we need to cover. Everything else would just be another database of a different type.
Right. Yep. That's what's so great about databases. Once you kind of get a handle on how to create them and how to really understand how to edit them and things like that, it's really great because it applies to so many different options. But yeah. Well, I hope many of you have either learned something new or kind of got a reassurance on what you've been doing already on creating databases. And what we'll do is, like I said, we'll post the PowerPoint slides on or it'll be accessible for everyone in the audience at our Box account, which would be at, let me pull up the slideshow again. Oops. Okay, we'll just go back to here. And you can see down here is the, whoops, sorry about that. Okay, at the bottom of the slide here we have the website or the link for where you can download the slide deck, and then also, as I mentioned earlier, the presentation will be available on our YouTube channel as well. What we'll do is go ahead and wrap up for today. If you have any other questions or if you think of something in the future, what we'll do is monitor the Autodesk Moldflow forums. Feel free to post them on there and we'll take a look at them and see if we can answer any questions for you. All right. Thank you for joining us today. Bye.